Hello, I am Samantha Salmon, certified brain optimization coach, and today is the first of a series of lives that I'm going to be doing um, uh, on LinkedIn, and I'm also going live on YouTube and Facebook. So, for those of you who are watching me live, definitely comment in the comment box. I would love to interact with you. But today we have a really interesting conversation. So my idea for these Thursday conversations, I'm calling them Thursday thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to health and wellness. There's a lot going on, and I think in the world of business and entrepreneurship, the most important organ that folks are thinking about and concerned about is their brain, right? Most of us make money from our brain, but beyond that, beyond success of career ambitions or whatnot, how we are interacting with each other at work, at home, these harmonious relationships that make life meaningful to us, right, is all dictated by the healthy functioning of our brain. So it's not just about memory, recall, and cognitive abilities. It's about having harmonious relationships. It's very difficult for anyone to have harmonious relationships when their brain is not getting the support that it needs, the healthy support that it needs. And we're going to kind of talk about that today on this topic of reversing cognitive decline. When I do talks, folks ask me all the time, is Alzheimer's reversible? This is a really interesting question, and it makes sense. What we know in the science, right, is that cognitive decline is in fact reversible. And how do we do this? We do this with diet and lifestyle. So what does that look like, right? What does diet and lifestyle for cognitive decline reversing do? How do we optimize brain function? Well, we go through a reversal of the disease process by focusing on the risk factors, right? So we know what puts the brain at risk for cognitive decline. So we work on reversing that so that we can reverse that cognitive decline. And what are those risk factors? There's 11 I'm going to run through today. And the acronym to help you remember it is Bright Minds. Okay, you can take notes if you want to. This is obviously recorded and it's going to live online. But I'm going to show you a little snippet of a presentation, one of many that I do in regards to this. So what are the 11 risk factors? First, B for blood flow, right? We need to have proper blood flow to the brain because that's how the brain is getting nutrients, nourishment. And so how do we make sure we do that? One of the glaring areas of opportunities is making sure we have consistent exercise on a daily basis. So for me personally, what I do is I take a walk. I do a daily walk, and that helps to get the blood flow going to the brain. The second risk factor, retirement and aging. So some of you may be thinking about what your plans are in retirement, and this is great that you're thinking about that because our whole idea of retirement right now, or historically, has been, you stay at home, you relax, watch TV, do all the things that you couldn't do when you were, working, right? Because you didn't have the opportunity to do those things. What I'm going to tell you is the whole idea of sitting at home and watching TV, socially isolating, this causes the brain to atrophy, and you don't want that. That's how folks end up quickly accelerating into Alzheimer's, into dementia. We need to see other faces, see other smiles. We need to be communicating with people, talking, hearing, thinking, right? So new learning. If you're in a job right now that is not stretching you cognitively, then you need to look for another job, work on a promotion or something like this, because we want to keep the brain cognitively flexible. We want neurons firing, right? And so this is all bundled up into this category of retirement and aging as a risk factor? How do you make sure that you don't put your brain at risk? You continue to learn new things. You can even learn a new language. It doesn't matter if you master the language. Just the process of learning the language is helping your brain stay young and youthful. Communicating, socializing. And so as you're thinking about what you plan to do in retirement, it shouldn't be not engaging in community. It shouldn't be not being of service. One of the things I like to talk about in my talks a lot, and an upcoming training that I'll tell you more about at the end of this, is having purpose in this life. So even if you have a career right now that is, paying the bills, when you hit retirement, there should be some other avenue of your life you want to explore that still keeps you cognitively engaged in the world, communicating with people, being of purpose. The next risk factor, inflammation. Inflammation in the body anywhere is affecting the brain. And when you have inflammation, this is constricting blood flow, which means the prefrontal cortex is not getting what it needs, which is blood flow. The prefrontal cortex is the front area of your brain that's like the CEO of your brain. As a setting foundation, like I said, I want to reiterate because it's so important. The brain manages everything you think, feel, and do, how you behave, how you interact with colleagues at work, how you interact with your family members at home. If your brain is not doing well, you are most likely having issues in your life, whether it be in your career or in your relationships, wherever those relationships lie, right? So this is why brain health is so important on all levels. And obviously, our brain is not disconnected from the rest of the body. So if you have inflammation in the body, this is causing issues in the brain as well. Genetics, there is a genetic component, specifically the APOE4 gene. If you have a parent, you are at risk. If you have two parents, you're even more at risk that have this gene, right? But all of us really need to be concerned about living a brain healthy lifestyle. Genetics is a very small portion of this whole thing. The lifestyle and nutrition piece is the biggest factor. If you have this genetic component, it's not 100% that you're going to end up with Alzheimer's or dementia if you are living a brain healthy lifestyle, right? So it's important for everybody. Then there's head trauma. And some people think head trauma is that like you had a concussion, but it doesn't have to mean that you had a concussion. Even things like, when I was younger, I used to love to go to Six Flags Great Adventures, right? You jump on the rides and you're having a good time being swung up in the air and all of that. And I'm living in Orlando now, so we have, Disney World here. We have all of these rides just like randomly all over the city. But I don't know if you remember the last time you've been on one of these roller coasters, right? You're sitting in there, you got the strap on, and your head is like being banged around, right? And you come off with like a headache, and you think it's no big deal. But what happens is the brain is the consistency of soft butter or custard or tofu, okay? And it's housed in the skull with bony ridges that are as sharp as knives, basically. So you have this brain going through like this whiplash, right? We all know shaken baby syndrome is dangerous for baby, right? You could kill baby, right? But the same thing is true for us, except, we're not being shaken on that level, right? In proportion to our body, but lacerations and trauma is happening to the brain. Now the brain, you're not stuck with the brain that you have, right? We can, do scans and see the changes going on in the brain on a moment by moment basis. So you come off this ride, for example, you have the headache, right? The brain has been affected, has been hurt, but it doesn't mean it stays that way. But it either could get worse or it could get better depending on your lifestyle. Are you living a brain healthy lifestyle or not, right? So head trauma is a huge piece. Beyond that, obviously, if you have had a concussion, if you've fallen off a roof, which apparently a lot of people fall off roofs, so definitely be mindful and cautious of this, because this thing can lead to the brain not doing well. First of all, memory recall being hindered, making smart choices. So if you're trying to live a healthy lifestyle or make good business decisions, that being impacted because of the trauma, and also being aggressive, and belligerent, being just difficult, in relationship with people, whether it be at work or at home. All of this stuff can be a consequence of head trauma. Toxins as well. I have heard cases of couples who were on the brink of divorce because of toxicity to the brain. One case in particular, this guy was working in a furniture factory where they were finishing furniture. So you have all these solvents, and in the workplace they're supposed to wear certain masks and things like that, and he didn't think it was a big deal. But ever since he started the job, over time his wife started to notice that he was just becoming more and more a jerk. And after going through many therapists, marital therapists, spending tens of thousands of dollars, they finally ended up at Amen Clinics and did a SPECT scan on his brain, which shows the blood flow to the brain, and discovered that it was toxicity. His brain basically looked like someone who was a heroin addict, right? Taking all sorts of hard drugs. But he didn't take drugs. He was working, right? But that toxicity affected his brain. Some of these chemicals do break the blood-brain barrier and cause traumatic impacts. What we think is our personality is not necessarily our personality, right? It's all the brain functioning. Ooh, I see. I got a thumbs up. Thank you. I have 3 people watching live. If you are watching live, give me a hi in the chat. Let me know I'm not here alone. I know I'm live streaming on LinkedIn, which will be a regular that I do every week, at least leading up to the Beat Stress Eating training that's coming up in June, and I'll let you know more about that. But we're also live on YouTube. Hey, what's up to my YouTube family? And on Facebook, on Raw Food Meal Planners Facebook page. So we're going through the 11 risk factors that lead to cognitive decline, right? Jennifer from Britain. Hey, how you doing, Jennifer? Thanks for joining us. Let me see. I'm going to just move this thing around here. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. So we talked about toxins, also mental health, right? You want to make sure you get this checked, be mindful of your mental health. Depression and anxiety is really on an all-time high right now, and folks are suffering. A lot of it has to do with what I mentioned earlier, social isolation. A lot of us are working remotely. We're not interacting with people in real life, but also, having strong relationships with folks. We've been through a lot during the pandemic. It wasn't just the shutdowns and not being able to see family members and connect physically, but also because physical touch is a huge part of this as well, right? How we are able to regulate our nervous systems. Part of it has to do with not just seeing a friendly face, seeing a smile back, but being able to touch, being able to hug. And, a lot of that was interrupted during the shutdowns with family members. But we went through a lot of political stuff. We're still going through political stuff, right? I know, at my alma mater, NYU's campus, and at Columbia, not too far, there's a lot of protests and things going on with all the wars we have happening right now. People are really scared, and the news does not make things better, right? So we get a lot of folks, and maybe some of you maybe have parents who are at home, they're watching the news 24/7, because we have a 24/7 news cycle, which really contributes to this mental health decline. And they're wrapped up in the fear and the stress of all this stuff, things that they have no control over, right? And that's really what stress comes from, because if you perceive something that you cannot handle, it's beyond your control, it's beyond your capacity to handle it, it becomes a stressor for you, right? And high stress, what we know physically, what's happening in the body is when you perceive something to be stressful, right? It's all about your perception. When you perceive something to be stressful, you have now high cortisol surging in your body, which is a stress hormone, which then causes insulin to spike in the body. When this is chronic, meaning it's sustained over a long period of time, you run the risk of actually inducing insulin resistance, right? Just from chronic stress alone. Insulin resistance is the mechanism, it's the pathway that is underlying type 2 diabetes, and also the cause of Alzheimer's disease. They call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because the mechanism that is causing it is basically the same, right? So we really need to be mindful of this. Folks who have a long history of depression untreated, and when I say untreated, I don't necessarily mean using medication, right? Just so we're clear. But when it goes on too long untreated, it can lead to cognitive decline. It can lead to dementia. It can lead to Alzheimer's, which, makes sense actually to me, because the body is a self-healing mechanism, and the brain, what we know even about trauma, the brain is always trying to help itself. It's working on self-preservation, right? So if something is really traumatic for you, is very painful for you, what is it going to try to do? Like shut that down, right? So, but that's actually shutting your brain down. So it's something that you need to work on and deal with. Then we have I, immunity and infections. Now, all of us have gone through this COVID situation, whether you got the vaccine or not, whether you had the virus or not. I think most of us had the virus, but having the virus, and the vaccine, your gut microbiome has been changed. The brain is very much heavily influenced by the gut microbiome and the health of our cardiovascular system. And so because we're now in this paradigm where most of us now have a new gut microbiome that has been very much affected by this coronavirus, we really need to step up on our nutrition and on our self-care. Self-care is not selfish, okay? It's self-preservation. And we need to preserve ourselves so we can be here to do the work that God has called us to do, and to be here for our family members, our loved ones, right? We have purpose in this world. And if you're not clear on your purpose, I would highly recommend that you get started on that right now. That is the motivating factor for saving yourself in this really toxic environment. We're living in a very toxic food environment for a lot of different reasons, which we won't even touch on this session, because that's a whole nother talk. But also, there are a lot of chemicals in our environment now, way more than before. Things like DDT and microplastics and glyphosate, all of this stuff. So we really need to be mindful. When we eat or put things on our body, we're taking the outside environment in, and it is affecting us. So you have things like Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr, these types of viruses, infections, and things like this. This affects the brain function. You definitely want to heal that. And you may even know some people who have had those situations and have seen the changes in their cognitive abilities. Can you go raw with Addison's? Jalen asks. Hey, Jalen, first of all, thank you for being here with us live. I am not actually sure about that, but I will look into that for you. Typically with raw foods, I don't know anyone who shouldn't be doing raw foods. When we talk about raw food and raw nutrition, I'm talking about fruits, I'm talking about vegetables, nuts, seeds. This is where nutrients lie. That's where life lies. This is our species-specific diet in its natural, unprocessed state. And it's really, regardless of anybody's diet and whatever they believe, because there's a lot of debate around nutrition, right? You have the carnivore people, the vegan folks, and then you have the raw vegan folks, the paleo folks, and all these people in between, right? But what everybody can agree with is that processed foods is not helping us. Yeah, Jalen, too much potassium is a problem with Addison. And then when you start getting into stuff like that, it's really great to connect with a registered dietitian or a nutrition specialist. What's happening in the system right now is not too many of them are privy to plant-based nutrition, because the training that is done in the dietitian world is very limited and not looking at current evidence-based science. So I would definitely point you to the resource of Brenda Davis, Vasanto Molina, and Vasanto Molina was actually on my show. And you can find that video on YouTube. I know you're watching on YouTube. She visited us. Who else? Dr. Greger on nutritionfacts.org probably has some information about that. But it's definitely worth looking into and becoming an expert on. I find like when it comes to raw food nutrition, you have some trailblazers who are doing amazing work helping to restore kidney function, reverse lupus, reverse type 2 diabetes, improve insulin sensitivity with type 1 diabetes, bring people back from hospice care, right? Bring them back online. So they're discharged from hospice care because of raw food nutrition. You know, these trailblazers out there using raw foods in this way, in a very therapeutic way. At the same time, we don't have enough studies on this, but the mechanism for the most powerful scientific backing to raw food nutrition that I feel is out right now is in Dr. Greger's latest book, How Not to Age, the section on glycation, because he's basically talking about why with a raw food diet, your body literally becomes younger. And with cooked food, you know, they're just levels to the food, right? So eating meat, dairy, eggs, that ages you faster. These are inflammatory foods. There's some other inflammatory foods that aren't meat, dairy, eggs, like wheat can be very inflammatory. Non-organic corn, right? Mostly because of the chemicals, in my opinion. Very inflammatory, right? Beyond that, then you have less advanced glycation end products, right? Which are basically it's a whole process of glycation where basically proteins are sticking together so the body's not able to function as efficiently, right? So the body is able to function more efficiently with a plant-based, a whole food vegan diet. Whole food vegan diet. Not a processed vegan diet, a whole food vegan diet. So we're clear. And even more so efficiently on a raw food diet, right? But to get even into raw food eating, which is the ultimate cleanest form of eating, in my opinion, based off of the scientific research, you have to get yourself free from the chains of addiction. So we're going to be talking about that after I run through the 11 risk factors. So we have immunity infections we talked about. Neurohormone deficiency. So you need to make sure your hormones are properly balanced, right? So we're talking about thyroid hormones. We're talking about sex hormones. These need to be properly balanced. If they're not, then you will have mental health issues. One of the things that have come out a lot in the research is that there's a lot of folks being diagnosed with bipolar disorder when really they have thyroid dysfunction. Their thyroid hormones are not balanced and it's causing this misdiagnosis. So you want to make sure that you run your labs. And I'm going to explain to you, I have a list of metrics, the numbers that you need to know for optimal brain function. And it is inside the workbook that everyone gets when they sign up for my training, the Beat Stress Eating training. The next round, the next cohort is happening in June. So definitely sign up for that so you can get your hand on these lab numbers, and you want to optimize these numbers for optimal brain function, right? Go to your doctor, ask for the labs. If they're not willing to run the labs, definitely email me and I can make a recommendation for you. My email is info@rawfoodmealplanner.com, because honestly, the state of healthcare right now, it's a sick care system. You need to be an advocate for yourself. You need to have some level of understanding how the body works and really pay attention to your vital signs. So as a woman, for example, a vital sign is your menstruation if you're still menstruating. Another vital sign for all humans, right, is number 1 and number 2. How frequently are you urinating? What's the color? When you go number 2, are you having constipation? Are you having diarrhea? What's the color? What's the smell? You need to understand this. You really need to be the expert on your body when you engage a physician, so that you can come with the information, so you can match your expertise on your body with their expertise on the medical science, right, of what they know around pills and procedures, because that's the tools they have to help you. And then part of your healthcare team are folks like myself, health coaches. So you run your labs, you find out your triglycerides are high, which is basically fat cells, right? Your fat cells are just too high, and you want to optimize it. And so you work with a coach like myself to do that, right? Most of us pretty much know what we need to be doing. We need to cut out the processed foods. We need to engage in consistent physical activity. But why are we not doing that? That's why you engage a coach. 2, you have a goal for yourself. You have an idea for how you want to live and be in this world, right? You want to not only be successful in your career, but you want to be successful in your relationships, right? Having strong relationships actually makes you wealthier, but not just financially. Definitely financially, we know that, but wealthier in spirit, because having a strong, intimate relationship with your partner, having amazing relationship with your parents and your siblings and your family members, you are rich and wealthy in resources, and the emotional and spiritual reinforcements that keep us well and joyful in this life experience, right? Without that social network, we find that folks are falling into depression, which I just said is a risk factor, right? Plus it's not enjoyable, right? I've experienced depression myself, and it feels like you are drowning and you're trying to save yourself, especially as a health conscious person, which if you took time out of your day to be on this live, I know you're a health conscious person. You're the type of person that leans in to prioritize your health and well-being. And I honor you for that. And even folks like that, we go through things, and depression is one of those things that's not fun. Doing all this, what I'm telling you, right? Not only is this evidence-based, what I'm sharing based on science, but it has personally helped me to keep my brain functioning properly, so that my moods are stable, so that I feel joyful and happy on a consistent basis, so that I'm having harmonious relationships and harmonious conversations, so that my stress is regulated, so I'm not having physical pain. For a lot of us women, we are having pain either in our menstrual cycles or getting a autoimmune diagnosis from chronic stress. We know fibromyalgia, which is a big one, and multiple sclerosis. A lot of this stuff is coming from chronic stress, not being self-expressed, feeling oppressed, a lot of these things, right? And the body keeps score, right? The tissues absorb all of this, and is physically being affected by it, and it becomes a systemic issue. So anyway, back to the risk factors. Diabetes. So this is a merging of diabetes and obesity. Of course, this is a risk factor for brain health. So you want to make sure you get that sorted. And sleep. Do not sleep on sleep, okay? Sleep is the best thing for you. If you are on a weight loss journey, if you just want to improve your metabolic health, you need sleep. You can literally sleep yourself to fat loss. You cannot actually release excess fat in the part that matters most, which is your midsection, where you have all your vital organs, and excess fat in that area stifles those vital organs, right? We don't want to do this. This is actually adding stress, physical stress to the body. Sleeping induces the relaxation response, right? So just from the neck down, you are allowing healing and repair and regeneration. But from the neck up, as we talk about optimal brain functioning, when we sleep is actually when the brain is doing most of its best work, right? It's cleaning, it's taking a shower, basically, throwing out the trash we don't need to remember, and storing all the memories we do want to remember, right? And just healing and repairing and keeping the brain fresh and clean. We need to sleep, and we need to sleep at least minimum 7 hours. So the sweet spot is 7 to 9. You don't want to sleep too much, but most people apparently are, 30% of the population is getting less than 6 hours, which is very dangerous, especially if you're a pilot, if you are a surgeon. And there has been, folks, I've heard stories of things that used to happen back in the day. One of my best interviews, I think, on the podcast, the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast, which you can find on YouTube and all podcasting platforms, is when I interviewed Dr. Brooke Goldner. And she was talking about her experience in residency and how little sleep they got. Like, it was crazy, the amount of hours that they would be working in one stretch of time. And you're dealing with people's lives in your hands, right? You have to fill out medical charts. You are actually prescribing medication, and none of these medications are benign. They affect your kidney and your kidneys and your liver, right? Because these organs have to detoxify or have to process all of this that you're consuming. So it's quite dangerous, right? And actually, one young woman died, and her dad took up the fight to change the system. So some changes and policy changes happened where residency students are now required. They're not allowed to work beyond a certain amount of hours. It's still a long amount of hours, but someone had to die for that change to happen, And so a lot of the education I do is just for us to be cautious, because the system, it's not just in the medical system affecting people who you feel should know this information, right? But all of our work environment, sometimes the work environment is very toxic and is contributing and perpetuating unhealthy behavior. So it's important for you to know, so you could find yourself in a better work situation if this is you. If your work is actually affecting any of these risk factors, you're basically on a treadmill to cognitive decline and dementia, and that's not the kind of life you want for yourself. Because why are we working, right? We're not working just to give all our labor to the system, right? We want to gain something from this. We want to at least have a quality of life at the end of it. So that's basically the bright minds, the risk factors to know, right? The risk factors and healing those risk factors, right? Reversing those issues in order to reverse cognitive decline. So if you want to dive more into the brain systems, and how to heal the brain to not just have harmonious relationships, lower stress, an amazing body, right? An amazing life. Definitely sign up for my training, Beat Stress Eating training, because we're going to be talking about more about that. We also have a session where we go into the different brain systems, understanding how it works, to what it does for us, and basically how it's playing a role in unhealthy food addiction. Once we can get ourselves off of refined sugar and processed food, we'll find that the functioning of our brain is so much better, and our quality of life experience is so much better. So I want to thank you all for joining me live. Jennifer and Jalen, this was definitely impromptu, so I really appreciate you joining me, and share this with someone who you feel will need it, and make sure to join me in the Beat Stress Eating training coming up in June. All right, take care, have a blessed day.